Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you're all doing well and in high spirits. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm excited to be joined by my dear friend, David. It's great to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I think today is, I put a video out in my coffee chat this morning, and the title of it was, door crasher sale for XRP. So I just think
Yep.
this is just spells to me anyway, Judy and I, this spells like opportunity. And as we get into the conversation, we can go over why, but it is amazing, really.
Yeah, it's a buying opportunity. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies
Yep.
and gentlemen, before we dive in, we are going to give you an overall overview of the markets, just so we're on the same page as we continue in this conversation. Let's start with the dollar index. I got that
Yep.
here. This is sitting at a 6-month low. And I know it sounds like a technical thing at glance, but when you really start to look at this, it just continues to signal that the dollar debasement is accelerating. And every time the dollar
Right.
continues to lose strength, it's not just a currency story, it's a structural warning about where
Mm-hmm.
the global financial system is heading. And again, that's what central banks, governments, and investors are all aware of, and that's why they are repositioning themselves. Yeah. Well, I mean, gold and silver, look at them. Gold and silver as well is hitting another all-time high as well.
All-time high. Yeah.
Yep. I think it's at, let's see what we got here. Pull it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give everybody the
Mm-hmm.
visual. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
I'm a bit
let's see what it
slow
is
today.
right at this
Oh,
minute.
here we go.
There you go.
37.65.
That
Another
is crazy.
all-time high. Yes.
Another all-time high. Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy, 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 crazy
And
time.
silver too.
Yep.
Silver is at another milestone of $44.12.
Yep. That
And
is
again,
not far away from the absolute all-time high over what, $50 or something like that back in the
right.
day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
Yep.
it's so obvious there is suppression of the metals markets.
Oh,
But
we know that. Yes. I mean,
yeah,
gold right now, I think we agree it should be in the multiple tens of thousands for true physical value. Silver, I think, should be at least 250, if not somewhere around $400 an ounce. Maybe even more, because the demand for silver is for its industrial uses is crazy. You know.
agreed. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, overall though, at the end of the day, it's crazy because gold and silver, they're not moving because of speculation. I
That's
think
right.
it's a response, right, to all
Mhm,
the pressure
mhm.
that you see here.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
when you
that's true.
factor in everything, right? Debasement, geopolitical instability, and the slow erosion of faith in fiat in general, holding
Mhm.
metals right now, it's not just a commodity. I would say it's a lifeboat, really.
Right. I mean, a lot of times people will say, "Hey, look, if you held 5%, when the market crashed way back, if you held 5% of your position, in precious metals, that 5% really is what saved your life, which is amazing. But it's because, of course, it appreciated against every other, the falling dollar and the collapse of everything else, right? So it was a big, big deal. And of course, we expected gold to actually appreciate more when they did lower the interest rate. What I think folks were not expecting, though, is the kind of knee-jerk reaction that we have saw in equities and of course in these digital assets. I think in that case we're dealing with a sell the room or buy the rumor, sell the news kind of deal, right?
Mhm.
And I see you got here like Bitcoin's, where Bitcoin is at. Now, Bitcoin didn't really drop too much. It only dropped like what, maybe 1%, a little bit more than 1%. But the altcoins bled heavily. And something I'd like to show, if I can just share my
Yeah,
screen, if you're okay with
please.
that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to show a Binance chart for XRP right now.
Let me put it up.
And this is on the daily. Now, something I'd really like to point out is this, because we can go back a number of days. I mean, we're back over here in June. This is like June 22nd. XRP climbs up, comes down, this is consolidation. We know that. What do we see right here? Well, isn't it interesting that you see this is what I call a scammy wick. Now, the reason I call these scammy wicks is because it drops down in the middle of the night, 2:30 in the morning or something like that for most of the Western world. And, then all of a sudden it just gets bought up like crazy. So it dropped down to like $2.69 something and got bought up to where we are now, 285. Well, what happened in here for a lot of crypto. And of course, XRP, massive liquidations. In fact, I did see a comment on the section that one guy said, my boy got liquidated last night and I'm praying for his soul. Well, I get it, because a lot of the exchanges, you have to remember, they're using a lot of the bots and automated market makers. Now, these things are making trades, hundreds, if not thousands of trades in a second. And they are hunting. They are absolutely out there, and they are hunting for, these stop losses. And when these exchanges see that, hey, you got a bunch of leverage longs out there. Now, there were some shorts got liquidated, but most of it were long, something like 86, 87%. Well, they know that. And, it never ceases to amaze me when they see this kind of expectation. And a lot of people were expecting to see, hey, a move up in these markets, because money moves, right? When you bring more liquidity in the market, it moves, and should normally see equities and, of course, this digital asset space move. Well, what happened was these guys came out, these market, and they dropped it. They dropped and they liquidated in the entirety of this digital asset space, something like $600 million, over 220,000 accounts were liquidated. That is something else. But that tells a story right there. Now, a lot of people have another theory. It's called the long wick theory. So the long wick theory, basically from a TA point of view, and I'm not a TA guy, but I've heard this theory, is that what you usually see, you see one candle where you got this long wick on the bottom. It's been bought up. The next candle, because of that, the momentum continues and the asset rises in price. I honestly don't believe it's going to be too much longer. We're going to be back over $3, and all that kind of stuff. So now I can just stop sharing that right there. But I thought I would bring that out because, of course, this is a situation. A lot of people that are new in the space, they open up their wallet, they look at their portfolio, and they're like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Wow, it was this much just yesterday, last week, this much. Now look at, oh my God." And of course, this space is measured in fear and greed. So you got fear missing out, at the top, you got fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And they play so many people like a song.
Yeah.
And it just never ceases to amaze me. But I just thought that I would point that out.
No, I agree with you entirely. Man, I didn't realize how much coffee I need. Okay. I mean, that's the thing,
drink.
though. This is all market psychology, though, right? And whenever there's a liquidation, there's always opportunity to be created, right? The banks, institutional players, what do? They exploit fear. And to your point, people look at their phone, they start to worry. I start to get emails.
Yeah.
And it's simple. I mean, they can manipulate it because they can, but that's because the system incentivizes them to, right?
It
And
does.
if you take a step back and look at the larger picture, like crypto, is far from dead. It's just a cyclical reset.
Yeah. No. I agree with you there, Versan, for sure. It's far from dead. And, and the reality is this is just something we have gotten so used to that it feels like water off our backs, like a duck's back. We're just so used to it being in the space for the number of years that we have. Judy and I, and of course, I know this is true for you and Vandell, is we look at these things as, hey, these are accumulation opportunities for us. Now, I'm not saying that that's what everyone else should do. I mean, check your risk tolerance, of course, but it's because we've been through it so many times. And, we haven't even seen what a proper bull run looks like yet. You got a lot of tier one assets like Hedera Hashgraph, like Cardano, like a bunch of other ones in this space. These top, 25 or whatever, haven't even seen new all-time highs based on the previous. Well, the environment is telling us we are in a bull cycle. New all-time high with the Dow, the Russell, the NASDAQ, of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, different ones. But we haven't hit the pinnacle yet. And I do believe that is coming. And when it does come, it will be ferocious and fast.
Agreed. I mean, what's really going to drive these to the prices that most people have expectations to is regulation and institutional involvement. Now, institutions do have involvement as far as the infrastructure, right?
Yes.
But like, for instance, the rate cut, that kind of ties in even to the market psychology. Let's think about this. If you start to see the recent rate cut announcement that they gave on the surface, okay, right? I think it's a stimulus measure, okay? But in reality, it's a psychological play. Cheaper rates create cheaper entry points for bigger institutions. They stabilize leverage temporarily, and that's what they've been doing. They manipulate the timing of asset flows. And where am I going with this? I'm sorry. From the psychological perspective, you could say the markets then respond to what could not happen or what could happen.
Right.
And right now, the fear, it's really a tool for institutions to get cheaper prices.
It is, because you think of who is buying that fear, because, a lot of retail will come in and they will capitulate because they're not used to it. It's too volatile for them. They're like, oh my gosh, I just lost, 30K worth of value in my portfolio. I'm out. I'm taking it now because God only knows it's going to drop any further. Well, for everybody selling, someone else has got to be down there buying, right?
Yeah.
Well, who is buying up the fear? We know who's buying up the fear. It's a lot of these major players, these whales that have just shaken that tree, and they are just waiting for the peaches to fall. And boy, are they ever taking them in. And so this is how you see, you need to learn. And we know this because you and I, we do coaching and stuff like that, but we help people to understand, how do you identify the psychology in the marketplace so that you're not a victim of it, but can actually use it to your advantage long term as an investor. So I think that's so vitally important that you're bringing that out. Psychology does matter, and they know every little trick in the book.
Yeah,
to keep people hanging on or to keep them. I mean, and because human behavior is so predictable, it works every single time, at least to the amount that they need. Because they're not going to be able to get a lot of people. They say, fool me once, shame on me, or shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of thing, right? And you get to learn big time, especially for folks that have worked so hard to build up a position, and then in one foolish trade get completely liquidated. Happens.
I'm gonna say something that I normally wouldn't talk about, but I want to give some comfort to the audience. I'm down roughly about $250,000. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not emotional about it. I just saw it as a buying opportunity, and I saw a comment in there asking, "Did you buy the dip?" Of course, I bought the dip.
Yep. Likewise.
I bought it. It was like late last night, and I started seeing them plummeting, and I was like, "Okay, I got to put some money aside." This morning, I ended up buying a little bit more SHX. I know it didn't really come down that much. I bought some XRP, even though for my short-term position.
Yeah, short-term.
Yes, and I don't know. I don't think I'm going to sell it though. That's something I've noticed. I have some sentimental emotion about the XRP for some reason.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're diversified. So we got bags of other things that we can kind of like, if we don't want to ever touch the XRP, if that is part of our game plan, well, then, you got these other positions like SHX, Velo. I really still like Velo. We're pretty strong and heavy in Hedera. HBAR. I do hold, decent bag of XLM. Different ones. And I got a little Bitcoin. What do you know? But only, it's not a significant amount. It's, a little bit, but so maybe a few Satoshis there, but the reason is because, look, from a long-term, as you said, institutional application, we can see the handwriting on the wall. All the institutional, you pointed out right at the beginning of our conversation, the regulatory piece, how that is going to play such a massive role. And you look at the partnerships, or lack of a better word, the associations that, you got Ripple and all these organizations that are employing the XRP ledger, the non-disclosure agreements, on and on and on. And you can't deny what's coming.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Real quick, I might as well just answer this question. Somebody asked, how do you take profit from SHX? Well, when SHX shot up, for instance, to 3.8, 3.5, if I'm not mistaken, and even in January, I took profit from SHX 6 times. Now, I understand it's not listed on many exchanges.
Yep.
So what I've had to do is the reverse of how I bought it, and I would simply convert it into any other asset, but I would be converting it back into XLM and sending that directly to the exchange and then straight into the bank. Okay. One last thing I want to say on the markets overall. is that the market's been doing really everything it's expected to do. Okay. And
Yeah.
ultimately, that means just exponential debt, right? It keeps
Mm-hmm.
expanding. It's designed to do that until one day where maybe XRP, and I do believe this will decouple eventually. Okay. But liquidity is really the engine. And every cycle you see, we always have a higher low and a higher high. And that's essentially permanent asset inflation. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah. And crypto is already in the same current, I would say. Look at the crypto market overall, it is at a higher high. So anytime you see these buying opportunities, take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of them because the current is going to be the same, the trajectory, a higher high overall, right?
Right. Yep.
So that
Mm-hmm.
is also a psychological response from people who are selling based out of fear, right? And I think it's
Yes.
the headlines that drive much of the dramatic response. I mean, you could see headlines, dollar implosion, right? Or something along those lines. But if you understand the interplay between the psychology you were referring to, the
Mm-hmm.
imbalances in the structural changes that you see, and of course, the strategic positioning, then
Right.
every opportunity that comes down to a correction is a buying opportunity. And then you have to wait for that inflection point to remember in hindsight, if I were to say that overall the market's going to end up higher and higher. And of course, there will be some sort of consolidation phase later on down the road. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, that's very true. I mean, I'm just trying to pull a chart up here if I can. I'm going to try January of 2017 right to where we are right now to kind of show. I don't know. It's not showing up on TradingView. But what I wanted to show folks is that, what we're seeing right now, we have been here before and we have seen dips of significant amounts, in some of these assets, especially XRP in prior bull cycles before the bull run was really even over. Now, a lot of people were getting shaken out, seriously shaken out, and really did not see the overall, big picture. And, because XRP had moved, it made a significant move. It went from under a penny to like 20 some cents. And of course, that's a huge deal, 20x return. A lot of people got so jittery and nervous and they just said, you know what, I just can't take it. I'm taking my 20x and that's it. I'm out. Only to miss out on just a couple to 3 weeks later, that thing shooting off to going over $3 at the time when they had bought it for under a penny. Wow, 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 wow. And that has happened so many times. Yeah, go ahead with what this is here.
Oh yeah, we'll cover that. First of all, I do want to thank XRP Plumbing. That was very nice of him. He
Mhm.
donated $19.99. Every penny counts, but I really appreciate it. I promise you that money really doesn't go into crypto from the YouTube channel. It goes right back into the promotion to get this information out there. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But thank you very much. That's very kind of you. And you guys don't have to donate, but I won't forget that.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
that is important.
Yeah, so this is another big development. I had a discussion with DAI and Brad Kimes the other day from Digital Perspectives. That was a good conversation. I really
Mhm.
wish we got to drag it out because we had so much more we wanted to talk about. And we were
Mhm.
going to discuss Stellar and other things, but there was a major development. It's funny. It's like the timing is so just perfect, but he sent me this morning a message and he tagged me also in a tweet about this one right here. So I think it's important to note that um, JP Morgan,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who dismiss the idea that there's no evidence, there's no proof that they're leveraging XRP. And, I think it's, I keep saying, give me a break. I mean, the biggest behemoths of finance being at the forefront. I don't want to repeat myself, but the idea that JP Morgan leveraging Ripple and XRP, I believe this has been quietly in the works for many years. And it's simple. What we're seeing is really something called soft disclosure, and they do it
Mhm.
in many narratives. It's not just finance, but
Right.
institutions like BlackRock, like JP Morgan, they're never going to share and announce their strategy. Okay.
Of course. Never.
That's why they're telling you Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin,
Yep.
because that's the rewiring of the market psychology as well. But
Mhm.
ultimately, it's really the plumbing behind the scenes for a very
Mhm.
long time. It's XRP, right? It
It
has
is.
been the end game for a very long time. And I do
Extremely.
believe Stellar plays a role in this too, and we can talk about that later. But it's not
Mhm.
speculation, right? Now you have their head of digital assets going to speak at Ripple Swell 2025. I mean, the signal is there for anyone willing to look, right? And I think that's why, ultimately they don't talk about this. It's because it plays such a critical role in all of it, right?
Right.
They
Yeah.
don't need to.
They
But
don't
the
need to.
integration has been happening for years,
Mhm.
methodically, and I think without fanfare, no attention really.
Yeah. No. And then when you do kind of bring it up, I mean, you get a lot of people trying to shoot holes in your thesis. And of course, they're looking for, well, you show me one document where it's a hard fact. Well, it's like, it's usually where there's smoke, there's fire, and we can follow the breadcrumbs crumbs and stuff like that. You've seen Brad Garlinghouse, sitting at a lot of meetings with these guys, JP Morgan, for instance, before the lawsuit was laid. A lot of their executives were in Ripple's office before that went down.
Before the lawsuit, you mean,
Yeah,
right?
before the lawsuit, just before
Mhm.
it was laid down, and and all that kind of stuff. The fact that yes, that Scott Lucas is going to be speaking at Ripple Swell says volumes, of the integrated relationship that these guys have. I mean, you even have Jim Rickards, who has made some really amazing ties between BlackRock and Ripple's technology.
Mhm.
It's all out there, and we can see kind of who the players are. And of course, around the wide world, you're watching other foreign banks that like SBI, of course, in Japan, BBVA in Spain, there, in Dubai, major developments there as well, in the utilization of the XRP ledger, not just connections with Ripple.
Agreed.
So to make your point, they're not gonna, they don't have to really show their hand or play their cards, because the amount of XRP that retail actually has any kind of control over is such a puny, miscellaneous percentage of what these guys will hold, that it's not even consequential for them.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
they don't have to, they're not like us in this regard. They're not thinking like us. In the majority of us, meaning retail investors, they're not thinking like us in this way. They're not thinking, well, I hope XRP hits $100 so I can do this. They're not thinking like that. They
Yeah.
are thinking strategically down the road in decades,
Yeah. I
and they've
mean,
already been at it for a while.
efficiency. I mean,
Yes,
that's
of
what they're
course.
after. It's again about the
Right.
tech.
Yeah.
They're not speculating the market like we are. I
No,
think they're
no.
using it to their advantage, right?
Mhm.
Um,
We are a experiment, Versan.
yeah.
Retail is an experiment for these guys. That's
Mhm.
what it is.
Yeah.
That's my
Also,
belief.
no, I agree with you entirely. Same goes for BlackRock, right?
Mhm.
Um, but also you have Stronghold SHX. We talked about it very briefly last
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Some interesting news. SHX is going to be participating at the XRP Seal Korean conference. And, this is big for anyone
Mhm.
following SHX Stronghold.
Yeah.
But, just to reinforce what we've been saying, it's extremely undervalued, relatively to
Mhm.
its utility and its building in the ecosystem at
Yeah,
scale.
yeah.
So for anyone paying attention, the signs have been there for years. I didn't figure it out until last year. But it's becoming impossible to ignore. So make sure you do have a position in SHX as well. And how to buy this asset, I left instructions in the description. So I see comments all the time after the video telling you I have the instructions in the description. How do I buy it? Well, just listen to the video.
Yeah, and
Please.
of course, I mean, the mechanics of how you go out and buy it, perfect, perfect. But please do your own due diligence,
That
because
too.
you're the ones taking the risk here. I mean, I've often said this, and I really do believe it, it's true,
Mm,
is, we can share our convictions, but we can't transpose the confidence that goes with that. You can never do that. You can never do that. And a lot of people are riding on the coattails of someone else's confidence. And you may be on the wrong coattail. You never know. And so and you don't mature really as an investor that way either. So I'm a big advocate of, the answers we find for ourselves are the ones we usually trust the most.
yeah. Um, Somebody asked a question. Might as well
Yeah.
address it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
About buying SHX through Ethereum. not really the best idea. I
Yeah,
tried that
Stellar Network.
when I first started buying SHX.
Right.
I did buy it through the Ethereum because I didn't know I could buy it through Stellar Term.
Stellar.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember the first time I was trying to, just see if I can move some out of there and rotate it into Velo. I remember the gas fee being pretty damn high. And then it made sense to me that, you know what? I don't want to own SHX if I have to go through Ethereum. And I started doing research on it, and I realized you could buy it through Stellar Term. So I've been buying it directly through the Stellar network.
Yeah.
And SHX was built upon the Stellar network, so it only makes sense to buy something that's associated with its network where you can leverage the low fees, the speed, the efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. So buy it through Stellar Term. I know it's a tedious process for anyone who's new to this. But when you do it about 2 or 3 times, it becomes secondhand knowledge. And I can buy SHX right now on Stellar Term in about 6 minutes. Like that.
Right. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy here. I have to laugh because I don't know, Zolf Gerard. David again? I'm out. Well, guys, come on.
Saw that.
I mean,
Get lost.
I
Get
laugh
lost,
because
okay.
they didn't realize we started this show together from day one.
Yeah, we did. It was initially my brother, Edo, David, and I.
Yeah.
And that we called it the dream team.
Yeah, that's it.
But David's been so instrumental.
Oh, I
He's been
appreciate that.
instrumental, man. You've been instrumental in paving the way for a large amount of the community, but also being a very good friend and
you're my best.
Very hard to find people like you in this ecosystem. So
well, no, and I appreciate that. But what I wanted to point out there is a lot of times people, if they can't debate the argument, they attack the person. And I was going to say, I laughed about it a bit because, that has happened so much in this space with yourself and how folks have, they can't debate the argument. So they attack the character. You've experienced that. I've experienced that. Guys, we're here sharing exactly what we've experienced and our 100%, as I love to say, biased opinions. We got those opinions because we've really spent thousands upon thousands of hours going through a lot of information and have had conversations with folks. You specifically, Versan, have had conversations off camera with some very highly connected individuals.
It's true.
And what we're coming back without saying exactly who and what, but giving that sentiment is coming from a lot of that. And so, you can take it or leave it. I mean, it's a grain of salt. If you're not interested in really learning or investing in XRP, then why spend the time, fighting it? That has always amazed me. Like, I would not waste my time. I'm not on anybody's Bitcoin channel going bonkers with them. That's for sure.
No, I totally agree with you. Somebody said XRP sucks. Like, okay, where's the data behind your statement there? All the evidence is clear for anybody who looks at it. It does have an instrumental use case. It's just there is price suppression. You have to do a little due diligence to understand this. It's coupled to a corrupt debt-based Ponzi scheme at the moment. I mean, remember, XRP is coupled to everything that surrounds Bitcoin, the Ethereum network, and that's all tied to the debt market, right? So you have this revolving door. There is going to be a time and place, and it's funny. I'm going to share this, and I've been very transparent and open about this publicly. Like, I've never had any secret discussions, right? I've told people the truth. I tend to have a big mouth about this kind of thing. I try to tell people so they can go do their own due diligence. And anyways, I believe in transparency. And with Edward Dowd from BlackRock off record, I actually asked him and I said, like, what is going on? Why don't they ever talk about this asset? Why do they describe it, but they don't talk about it? And I said, you know what? I really believe what's going to happen is that there will be a real problem in the crypto market. I don't know what that may entail. I think it will do something to do with audits and maybe the Clarity Act regulations, right? Weeding out the bad actors. And I said there will be a massive correction in crypto and all other markets across the board. Gold and silver and other metals will rise, and XRP will eventually be realized that it's going to have to decouple.
Yeah.
and it will lead the way. And he pointed his finger at me and said, exactly.
Yeah.
And I showed him the documents. Every time we bring a guest on the show, we send them the documents in advance so we can have a discussion about it, right? So
That's
we
really
have a
excellent.
role in educating some of the big players that most of these people listen to, right?
Right.
Even
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki, when he came on the show,
Yeah.
after the show, his assistant reached out to me a week later saying, can you please forward some of those other documents? So, we've done our part as far as sharing what we believe, right? And we bring these guests on the show, not really to get answers that we want to hear. We bring them on the show to have the discussion about what we already know is going to play out, in fact,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And we have a pretty good track record of being, I don't know.
Right. Let's just say it as it is, man. You've had a tremendous track record of being right. We have been right so many times. I mean, way back when we were buying XRP before the lawsuit ever came down. And I remember when the lawsuit came out, and especially because, I put in a significant amount into XRP, and I was already buying XRP, but just one day before the lawsuit came. Well, what I did after that is, we just kept accumulating. And at that point, I was out there saying to folks, hey, listen, there is no way XRP can be classified as a security, because if you took all the prongs of the Howey test, it was not the oranges that were the security. It was the contracts about the orange grows that were securities. XRP in and of itself was never going to be designated as security. But oh my gosh, the FUD and the stuff that was going out, we were right. We were right the whole way through. Yep.
Yeah. And, there's some pretty admirable people in this ecosystem that have done a lot of good work as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And making sure that the community was aware of this. But, at the end of the day,
a good old boy right here, Jed McCaleb.
Yeah. So I've been watching a lot of older videos from Jed McCaleb, and just because they're old doesn't mean they're not relevant to the conversation today. I was digging in pretty deep, and I heard this. It caught my attention. I might tweet it. I don't know. We'll see. But I just want everyone to hear it. When he was asked about Ripple, and forget the story why he left. But
yeah, that's bogus. Anyway,
hope you can hear it.
I'm not sure what Ripple's plans are currently. Like, I haven't followed them too closely, but it does seem like, as an outsider view, it does seem like they're pivoting to kind of be like Swift 2.0.
Swift 2.0.
Yep.
Ultimately, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. That's the killer use case. That's the first one. That is the first killer use case. But then couple that with real world asset tokenization, you can practically tokenize anything on the XRP ledger.
Yeah.
Then they're moving forward with the decentralized identities, and we all know that decentralized identity is coming to the wide world. That's a fact, Jack. And you have something that we were talking about before we came on this show. I want you to present that about a particular bank in a certain part of the world and what they did to their millions of clients. Tell us what happened there.
Oh, right. So this really did catch my attention. In fact, that's something
decentralized IDs. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know I talk about crypto. I embrace the technology. But this is what I'm talking about when I say look under the hood, right? It caught my attention.
Yeah.
And it really concerns me because I read a story. Somebody I got to thank in this ecosystem sent it to me. And in Vietnam recently, there were about 86 million people that had their bank accounts deactivated. And it's simply because they failed to submit biometric data.
Bingo.
And now think about that for a second. 86 freaking million people effectively cut off from their financial ecosystem for not providing fingerprints, facial scans, or any other identity verification. And I think it's very important to understand this, because whenever you hear about these stories, first of all, they don't get any news coverage, okay? But it always concerns what happens outside of the United States or in these undeveloped countries first. And I'm not saying Vietnam's underdeveloped, okay? But typically these things are orchestrated outside first, right?
Yeah.
Because when they happen, they're testing these systems, you could say, right? Observing the reactions, seeing how far they can actually push people before they roll it into the larger populations. And ultimately, what the conclusion I came down to is that this is a real world experiment on control and compliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could result in policies later on down the road
Mm-hmm.
that could play out because of an orchestrated attack. Like example, like 9/11, right? And I don't want to bring this up, but 9/11, what happened afterwards? We had the Patriot Act. There's nothing patriotic about it.
Mm-hmm.
The Genius Act. There's nothing genius about it if you really do the due diligence.
Right.
So they could orchestrate a false flag event and justify the need to have more security, right? And say,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. You know, we need to know who the hell everybody is. We
And-
cannot let this happen
Mhm.
again because
Mhm.
this is America and we won't be attacked again. Or, you know, and all this
Yeah.
stuff goes back to the UN and the World Economic Forum. I followed these people closely. But
Mhm.
again, why isn't it on the headlines in the US? Why isn't anybody in the ecosystem talking about this?
Right. Because I think the big reason is that that is an eventuality. It's not a speculative thing. It is an eventuality for the purposes that you just mentioned there, the security piece. And one of the big deals that I've always felt will be kind of like attacked in this space, of course, is our self-custody of our assets. Now we know that that is already written into a lot of, legislation that they want to put forward, with respect to self-custody of wallets and things like that. But it's for the very reasons that you had mentioned there is they want to be able to identify, everybody and, and biometric, whether that, but the blockchain doesn't. Now, decentralized identity is a part of that. The Treasury just recently asked for feedback from major partners like banks and large money service businesses to offer feedback about the implementation of decentralized IDs. And so we know that that's coming. And the reason why I think that self-custody will be under attack is because, with every other asset class that there is a mechanism for either through a legal means, if you had a creditor obtaining a judgment, or a government where a government is wanting to seize assets and things like that. In this space, it is very difficult, of course, because, not your keys, not your crypto kind of deal. But there are requirements on decentralized exchanges, where they can do that. So the issue is, and now as a federal officer, and I'm going back to where I was a senior federal officer, and I would actually train people with respect to bankruptcy and insolvency legislation. When someone is insolvent, they either can file for protection under the Bankruptcy Act or they can be petitioned into it. When that happens, a trustee takes over all worldwide assets. Bankruptcy fraud is massive, absolutely massive. And so if you're hiding or sheltering, as we would say, assets in some of these undisclosed wallets that nobody knows who they are, that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe in this new system that they are developing, that identification with those assets is going to be a requirement of KYC and AML.
Yeah.
And that's my personal opinion. I think that is coming.
You're not wrong, man. You are not wrong. And, we get attacked for just telling people what entails in the documents. I mean, forget 2025. This document is from 2025. I know I've shown it a few times, but if you read the details in there, it's all in there. Programmability, digital identification, asset fractionalization, et cetera, et cetera. And, it was the WEF before Larry Fink took over. And this is after Larry Fink takes over, okay? But the WEF mentioned how to participate in this new financial system, there were conditions you'd have to adhere to.
Mm-hmm.
What conditions, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the KYC, the bank's involvement with the exchanges, because, I tweeted this recently and it's a fundamental truth that, the reality is with cryptocurrency, you don't need banks. You don't need intermediaries. That was the revolution, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All you needed was an internet connection, right? But now everybody's involved. Banks, financial institutions, governments, central planners. So, this underscores something we've been saying for a long time as well. The importance of owning physical, tangible assets outside the system. It's not just smart, it's essential, right? Gold,
Mhm.
silver, food, water, even firearms. This is not
Yeah.
about being paranoid. It's about
No.
surviving in a world that is increasingly becoming digitized and monitored, you could say.
Yeah.
So that's why my layer one foundation for my investments, I have it on my Patreon, shared it publicly for free. It's a 3-tier strategy where number one, you need to be positioned outside the system. Okay. Because all these conditions are going to fit into these digital infrastructures that we're talking about here. And, with Bill Gates Foundation kind of taking control of the whole food industry, you
Big.
start to think about the bigger picture, trying to buy up the water rights. Okay. Well, how are you supposed to buy and sell without the mark? You see what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yes.
And it's not a conspiracy. It's not
No.
a freaking conspiracy. And how many conspiracies have to be proven true for people to realize that this is just soft disclosure for
Yeah.
something that's inevitable, right?
It is an inevitability. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, but
It
with
will be.
with
If these
with the
people get their
controlled
way, it will be.
opposition,
Yeah.
yeah, but with the controlled opposition, it's going to be, right?
Mhm.
Something we've been talking about for a long time are 3 things that are very important. Number 1, no digital IDs. Okay. There are other forms of identifying an individual without having to give biometric data. That's
Yep.
infringing on your freedom. Okay. The second thing is convertibility. We don't talk about convertibility. We have to have a system where when you sell a cryptocurrency or a digital asset, you need to be able to convert it into something physical like fiat. But fiat is being debased. So what do we do? With the record of central banks buying gold and silver and other assets, we can have gold backs, paper gold backs, and we can have paper silver backs, and
Mhm.
issued by banks. So that way, when you sell an asset, it's convertible into something physical but real. And then finally, you need a digital constitution of human rights. Everything we do is digital now. And see, the technocrats have found a loophole because it's not part of the Constitution. And that's where it becomes problematic. So there needs to be a revisit to the Constitution that is integrated into the system we're going into. Because if we don't
Right.
do that, your freedoms are taken essentially. And tokenization
Absolutely.
is the first step.
And this is what they're doing now. Let me share something with you because you make a very, very strong point. This is why, I'm always saying to folks, hey, look, we got to be talking and getting in front of our legislators and having a voice in here. Now, let me show you this. Now, this is actually August 18th of 2025. Treasury issues requests for comment related to the guiding and establishing of national innovation for U.S. stablecoins. So the Genius Act, right? Well, you can read it in here. The U.S. Department of Treasury issued a request for comment required by the Genius Act. Now, look at down here. In particular, the Treasury asked commenters about the application program interfaces, artificial intelligence, digital identity verification, and the use of blockchain technology and monitoring, as required, by the way, by the Genius Act. Treasury will use public comments to inform research on the effectiveness, cost, privacy, and cybersecurity risks and other considerations related to these tools. What do you think they are planning to do with that? Come on. I mean, it is right there in front of our face. And you're right. Our that intrinsic belief that we have in terms of privacy, people are forfeiting that for what they believe is security. And I am 100% on the same page that I think there's going to be a catalyst that is going to, people won't resist it. They will beg for it. They will want it. They will want it.
Yeah.
And these guys are going to be right there to provide it.
Well, it's the next generation that's really
Yep.
condoning this and accepting
Yep.
it. They don't, the next generation,
Mm-hmm.
they don't want cash. They don't care if they're sharing their information with people.
Right. They don't. They'll
They
trade
don't
that very
value
easily.
privacy the way
Not like we do.
my parents did. You see,
Yeah.
like I'm just grateful that I'm able to see through this. You know, um, I really, it's incredible. It is, but overall, I think that we need to be mindful that if we don't stand up and voice for the changes that we believe in, okay, and there are major changes coming ahead, but we have to fight for them, right?
Yeah.
Even though our voice is small, but together, united, you can accomplish things like this. But this is, again, why I hold so much gold, silver, platinum now,
It
food,
makes
water,
sense.
ammunition,
Land.
firearms. I mean, I'd like to have land, but there's a time and place to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been in this space doing that. Like, I mean, I guess a lot of people would say prepping. We've been doing that probably since about 2012. And back then we were listening to Gerald Salante, and, he was making some really good points. And we just started to think, okay, well, let's position ourselves here. And we've been doing it for a long, long time. And to me, it does make sense, that you would do that in real world, solid things that you can hold right there, Big deal. Big deal.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I still feel so much hope, even though we're facing a lot of these changes that are coming. I do believe that, yes, they can be used for, control and various negative things at some point. Now, do I think somewhere down the line that it's going to happen? I absolutely do, because I'm a believer. And, from a prophetic sense, scripture even says that those things will take place. But I'm also a person of great hope. And I don't know, like, how long will that be? Is it going to be the first iteration, the second, the third, the fourth down the road, or whatever? So to me, I kind of like, there's this whole thing of we occupy till he comes. And I think that there is so much opportunity for folks to put themselves in a position to not be, just getting railroaded and driven over by this new system, but they can actually be in a position to let it benefit their lives long term. And yet so few people are even aware when you consider the monumental shift that this is going to represent in terms of our daily lives. So I just encourage the fact that we got people over here listening, watching, that kind of thing. Wow. I mean, I count it an amazing blessing to have been aware of this space as early as what we had, because it's already revolutionized our lives. And I do believe it has the power and potential, by the way, to revolutionize other folks' lives. I oftentimes say this way that, people that are looking at the price of XRP right now and stuff like that, I'm telling you, the day's going to come, you're going to weep for prices like this.
Yeah.
People are going to weep for these prices. That's my opinion on it anyway. And I would say be safe, no matter what. Be safe out there, guys. If your XRP has no value, like all these FUDsters stay, then why, oh, why are there 1,001 scammers trying to get it?
Yeah, there's that too. But overall, I hence the title. Listen, all these big institutions, these governments, they're all at the forefront of this. Retail has no impact on this market. We're just kind of like getting a piece of the breadcrumbs. That's the way I see it. And if you, of course, take the necessary steps to position yourself for where this is all going, you're going to do very well financially. I do believe there's going to be a culling, and it's not doom and gloom, but this is how society has functioned for centuries. There are a few winners, few people who see the opportunities, and the rest kind of get wiped out. And I still think there's a trajectory of all of this. You could sugarcoat it however you'd like. You can bring in the Q movement, and that's just simply controlled opposition, whatever. But ultimately, I think there will be like a real credit event eventually, where the banks are going to tighten their lending standards. And that's going to result into a massive influx into, looking for other alternatives as currency. And that's kind of going to drive a lot of these asset prices to go through the roof. And,
well, one big one there, Versan, of course, as we know, is the Genius Act requiring stable coins to hold U.S. treasuries. I mean, they got a guaranteed market to sell their debt to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the stable coins are really just a lifeline. It's a temporary solution.
Yeah.
Like our friend Dr. Jim Willey said recently, in the next 2 years, and he has a very solid point there. And I've written a little bit about the Genius Act and the stablecoin bill and what ultimately it's designed to be, right? It's a lifeline, essentially, to find a way to offload the debt and of course expand the reach of the dollar so they can remain that hegemony status.
Yeah.
But ultimately, people are going to realize that the stable coins are toxic because they're tied to its intrinsic value, the bond market, and essentially the dollar, right?
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental problem here. So, and again, just to reinforce, the dollar is it's not really a currency. It's a weapon for the military industrial complex to achieve a world order. And that's something they've been working on for decades. So, you know, I think we're at that turning point, no pun intended.
Yes.
And, you know, just to wrap up the video, I do want to take a moment and say thank you and how grateful we are to all of the supporters here we have on this show. And thank you for sharing the content and for, of course, spreading the message. And most importantly, for taking the time to spend with us and, of course, applying it into your own lives, some of the strategies we've discussed. I think that's where the real power is.
I agree. That well said. Well said.
Thank you. And another thing,
Mhm.
it's so funny, like huge favor for everybody. Please try not to compare me to my brother. I saw some nasty comments in there. I mean, my brother and I are very different, but we have the overall same view on most things, right? We just differentiate in our selling strategies a little bit, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Of course, nothing.
Okay.
You know, there's lots of room for, you know, and that's the beauty of it all. There's so many different folks that are in this space and stuff like that. And, you know, we're all pulling for the same thing. We're all pulling for a life change where we all can make it. You know, that's the goal ultimately. And hopefully we all get to do it. I don't think everybody will, but hopefully a majority will.
You know, I might as well share this with the audience, but something you should know about me and my brother. For a very long time, you know, Vindel, he did work in a bank, and in a bank, I think you're, you know, you're supposed to be very confident in yourself, how you talk, and calmly, and very mature about how you handle yourself. Personally, I dropped out of college 3 times. I couldn't find a job a long time ago. I refused to work until I could build my own business. And for a very long time, I've been self-employed for more than, I don't know, 18 years now. I've owned multiple businesses in the past. I've never worked for anybody in my life, and I've gone so far ahead. So the recipe for success is undeniable. And it wasn't easy, but I took a different route. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
very
that's
good. Very good. Well
Thank
said.
you guys. I really appreciate it. Okay. If you're looking to buy SHX, it's in the description. Please read the instructions.
There you are. All right. Bless you guys. Bye.
Bless you. Take care.